I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpn.fm to discover more.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. He is a 3-time Tony Award nominee who is currently performing as the King in Only Gold at the MCC Theater here in New York. But he was the original Rum Tum Tugger in the original Broadway production of Cats. So welcome, Terrence Mann, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks, man. Nice to be here.
I'm excited to have you on. I know I've always kind of jokingly put Tugger as my answer for everything. So it's the name of, like, if you actually look at the actual name of my Instagram, and for a long time I had it as my email name. So fan of your character. And I love talking to the original Broadway cast because my first question is always just, what was your experience with the show before, as I talk to everyone on tour and everyone who's doing it now, because it's been on for so long. But as someone who helped originate the role, you created a lot of this stuff. So I love to go back to the beginning. What was that process like? What was the mindset of when you got brought this project originally? And it's like, someone's like, hey, you're going to dress up as a cat and you're going to just basically, thrust your crotch at everybody and run around stage and be this kind of rock star. Like, did that resonate? Like, what was that like back when that happened? Because it's common, but whenever it started, it had to be kind of a bizarre thing to get asked about.
Well, it was in the beginning. People had seen the London production. Some people that were I was in shows with, and they had come back and they had said, "Wow, I saw this show over in London called Cats." And I went, "What do you mean Cats?" He said, "Well, it's based on." It's based on book poetry by T.S. Eliot. And I went, wow. And then they explained it, and you still kind of didn't understand it, but that you walk into the theater and that all of the set was like cat size. So you were reduced to being the size of a cat. So the whole environmental experience of it, number one, was kind of new to I think, Broadway anyway. And then, like auditioning for it, that was a whole nother thing. I make a very long story short. I couldn't get an audition for Cats in New York. And so I flew to London and through some friends over there, talked my way into an audition while they were doing a put-in rehearsal for some new Cats in the show. And I saw the show the night before my audition, which was like, I think, April the 6th, 1982, I think. Yeah, because we opened in September 7th, 1982. So I went in and basically did the audition, and I talked my way into it, got into the auditioned for Gillian Lynn, had seen the show, so I knew what it was. And it was just, at that time, it was, to coin a cat phrase, magical. I mean, it was just unbelievable. It was so surreal, and trippy,
Yeah.
And then you got all this choreography and this kind of pop rock music. It's Andrew Lloyd Webber. So, I come back to the States. I hear back. I got the job. And then, we start to do the rehearsals. And about the time we started to do rehearsals, they were releasing tickets to the for the theater at the Winter Garden. And I think the initial, when people bought those tickets, it was like a $5 million advance in 1982, which today would have been like, I don't know, $20-30 million advance. So my first thought, was like, wow, I'm going to have a job for a couple of years, which no actor.
Yeah.
ever thinks that about a show. You know, you knew it was gonna be a juggernaut. You knew whether or not the critics liked it, it was gonna be a hit with the audience. So that was the first blush of what was going on. And then we get into the room with Trevor Nunn and with Gillian Lynn, and literally everybody we talk about cats, and you start crawling around. And, you know, trying to act like a cat. And a lot of people went out and bought little kitties. And, you know, so everybody was doing their due diligence, you know, and trying to, you know, become their characters. There was I had kind of bad knees at the time, so getting down and crawling around a lot was difficult. So I don't know if you noticed it or not, but when me and the Harry Groener, who played Monkey Strap, we did a lot of standing on the stage rather than kneeling and crawling around, because we both had knee problems.
Wow.
That was which I liked. I liked standing up. Standing up is better than crawling around.
So I love that. So you didn't even get called in for New York. You actually flew over, and the night before you saw the show, and then you did your audition the next day. Did you audition like directly for Tugger after having seen Tugger the night before?
Yeah, I went right in the next day to audition for Gillian Lynn, and she was doing a put-in rehearsal for some new cats. So I went to the New London Theater where I'd seen it the night before, and got in, like I said, through some friends of mine who helped me get in the door, literally. And it's funny. She said, I went in and I said, I'm here to audition for cats. And she said, oh, all right, darling. I said, if your pianist is around, rehearsal pianist is around, I'll just do my song real quick and get out of your hair. And she went, well, he's gone around the corner to the pub for lunch. So I said, oh my God. So I said, well, I can play for myself. So I played this rock and roll song by Elton John called Take Me to the Pilot. And you know, and she went, oh, okay, I'll see you at the callbacks. And
you played your own audition song.
Correct. Well, the other funny thing was, I said I could play for myself, and she started clapping and went, darlings, talking to the other cats she was putting in the show. We're going to be entertained by an American. And so I sat down on the piano and played that song, and then got back, you know, and then, I didn't hear anything for a while, and then not that long. No, maybe a week or two, and then found out I had an audition for the final callback in the States. And it was on my birthday, July 1st, and then I found that day I got this job.
So you found out on your birthday?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, what a present. What a birthday present, too.
I know.
Originate the role. So now walk me a little bit through that rehearsal process. So obviously I know I've heard some the legend stories of it. I know there's even a book about it and all kinds of stuff about that process of basically, recreating this show. So I know you said you had bad knees, so you weren't crawling around, but how did they explain it to you the first time? Because now there's a lot of lore behind it of there's enough content out there that you can kind of understand a little bit of the backstory of the cats if you're going to go perform. But for you, you're basically going off of what Trevor, Andrew Lambert, and Gillian Lynn are telling you. So what was that storytelling like? How much information did they give you on the backstory? Well,
Trevor Nunn, really wanted to create a sense of ensemble, as he does with all of his companies. I mean, I think at the time he was still with the RSC, so it was all about creating this ensemble, this energy, this feeling, this synergy of fear and anxiety, but also celebration, because the story they're saying was, hey, look, we all come together one night, we read the poems, and what you got out of that, and the way they explained it simply was, you're all here to celebrate one cat who deserves to go to the Heaviside Layer. And then things happen throughout the evening, and people get up and tell stories about, like, the Peaks and the Pollicles and the Rumpus Cat and all that. And we get up and tell those stories, that folklore, that that history of the lives of cats to generate remembering the power and the history of what cats do for civilization. It was very, very Shakespearean, if you will. I mean, it was big feelings with big emotions and very high stakes, and that's, because you're hanging all of this stuff on these children's poems. So our performances had to be, number one, a collective where we were all on the same page at the same time, all the time, emotionally and storytelling wise, whatever chapter we were in as the evening went on. So that was the big thing that Trevor kept trying to impart. Jillian was there, man. She just made all of the movement, and the choreography. She created this, vocabulary of what different movements were for each of the numbers and stuff, which I can't remember because I didn't do that much dancing. But that was our acting class about it. Other than crawling around like cats and getting a feel for it.
Yeah, besides becoming a cat, you kind of have. It's really interesting to hear you say that, because now it seems like when they do the backstories and the production of like the rehearsals, it's a lot more of like, okay, here's this relation to that, and yours was a lot more Shakespearean, theatrical, big picture, and then kind of probably narrowing it in. Did they narrow down for you of like, hey, here's what Tugger's about, like here's his story?
Yeah, Trevor Nunn just came up to me one day. He's a man of very few words, but when he does speak, and he speaks softly, it's always important and it's always spot on with regard to what he's asking you to do. I remember one day he came up to me when we were kind of working the number, and I'd seen the show the night before, so I knew that, Tugger was mischievous, and he was out there to kind of, he was a kind of a tiger cat, and he was running around. He was always, getting into trouble and trying to make everybody laugh. And he was the cut up, like the jester almost but he was also a serious cat, because he was like, he really took seriously ultimately the who was going to the Heaviside Layer. He was like, I would say he was like a bodyguard maybe at some point, but Trevor came up to me at one point and said, the Tugger has this sense of méchant. And I went, oh, that's French, right? He said, yes, look it up. So I went and looked up the word French. I looked méchant, and it means just mysterious and mystical and like like unpredictable. And that's what I kind of hung the performance up. I also, my image was for a Mick Jagger kind of guy. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting, because it's like, from what I've heard, it's Tugger's, it's such a dance heavy show with very clear and incredible choreography in any production. Your production, the one Andy Blankenbuhr did, it seems like Tugger's the one character where you're given a little bit of freedom. So did you have a little bit of freedom? Did you like change it up every night with how you kind of went about it, just based off of what your kind of mysterious day felt?
I did, but I also was working within a context, within a box. I realized I had room to move within parameters, and that always kept it fresh for me. The thing that I saw in London was the guy came out into the audience. The Tugger comes out into the audience, and he was shooting people with a water pistol, which I thought, that's not going to fly in New York City. Somebody will get sued. So, so I thought I got to come up with something. So, we're into previews, and I'm running out in the audience, and I'm kind of playing with people, sitting in their laps, messing up their hair a little bit. And then at one point I ran out, and the first girl on the aisle, as I went through, was young. It was like a teenager, or maybe 18, 19 years old. I kind of went to kind of, hold her hand for a second, and she stood up and started kind of dancing with me. I went, oh, this is what I'm going to do. So that's what I started doing. I would run out. It was always in the same area, right on the corner there near the ramp. And I would run out and grab a person, and we would kind of dance, in the aisle a little bit. And everybody laughed, and then they would sit down. And then it evolved into not only getting them up, but bringing them up on stage and dancing with them. And really like dancing with them. And sometimes I'd bring them up, and these were people who loved to take the stage. I would let go, and they would just go crazy. And the audiences just loved it because there was one of their own up there acting like like a crazy cat without a costume on. So that's what it turned out to be. So
I love that.
Very cool.
That's so fun. I think one of the things about, I wasn't prepared for the Green Eyes section when I saw it. I saw it in 2016, so it's obviously a slightly different version.
Right.
But I wasn't prepared for the cats to be in the aisleway. Like I wasn't ready for that. And so, the Tugger came out and took a selfie, the modern version of it.
Right.
But I love the bringing people on stage and dancing with them. That actually is kind of my next question for you. Is I love hearing what other like kind of crazy stories do you remember? Because I know you did it for a while. You've got this is pre everyone having a camera in their in their pocket and having a video camera in their pocket. So, like, what were some of those things that you remember of just like, oh, this was that crazy experience, or this is something that like everybody definitely remembered from my cast?
Well, there was a couple of times. I mean. One time, I brought a lady up on stage, and she was just having a ball, and we were dancing around, and I turned her around, and then she let go of my hand and kind of just turned herself, and then she fell down, and she literally fell down backwards facing the audience, and her legs flew up in the air. And let's just say that the only thing she had on were pantyhose.
Oh God!
So there was that, at which everybody applauded. So you see. And then the other major thing that happened was one night when Betty Buckley was going to the Heaviside Layer. She was going up in the tower, and the sky was coming down for the little cherry picker, and the sky has to kind of part and drop down a little bit. Somebody had forgotten to undo the safety rope. So as the cherry picker came through the sky, it just started pulling huge, painted plywood pieces of sky, like 4 or 5, with it. And it was like crashing down on top of us. Nothing fell onto the stage, but it was cracking away, and everybody's going, "Oh, this ain't right." So Ken Page, to his credit, Betty Buckley's looks like, I got to go to the Heaviside Layer. He said, "Well, you're not going tonight." So he just grabbed her and kind of walked her to the back of the tire, and then by that time, we'd stop the show, and there was no curtain to pull down, so. Guys ran out and kind of fixed it, and then we went on from there. That night she just walked off stage to the Heaviside Layer. I remember.
Yeah. It's stage right instead of up in the sky.
Correct.
It seems like that happens. Almost every production I've talked to has had some version of where Grisabella doesn't actually make it to the Heaviside Layer in some capacity. Like the thing doesn't go up, the thing goes too high, the thing gets stuck. I mean,
yep.
I think that's some of the fun of live theater is you get all these like. You never know what's going to happen any night. And in a show like Cats, where it's so physical and so demanding, I mean, there's injuries, and I'm sure there was people put in at intermission because somebody got hurt.
Yes, that happened. I couldn't give you specific incidents, but it was because the choreography. The choreography was so specific to the cat vocabulary that Jillian created. You got, kinks in your body and muscle spasms where you never thought you'd ever have them. The other thing that was a big factor in why people got injured or knotted up was the ball was 12 minutes long when we did it. And not only did you do the ball, but right after you finished the ball, you didn't get to go off stage, get a glass of water, lay down and stretch. You had to like drop onto the deck while Grisabella came on for that final end of the first act thing. And people they're sweating, they're trying to not breathe because, and they have to sit there for a good, maybe 8 minutes, another 8-9 minutes. And you can feel, you just feel everything start to like tighten up. So that was another, not things, place where being in Cats didn't help you.
Yeah. I want to hear a little bit about if you were talking, like, when you did this, did you talk at all about like the relationships between the cats? Because there's a pretty deep rumor mill about you and Mr. Mistopheles, Tugger Mistopheles, and it's pretty much all of the fan fiction that's written out there is about it. So what was kind of told to you, in the original productions of here's what these two cats are? Are they together? Are they brothers? Are they, lovers? Are they like, what is that relationship?
That is, although that's pretty exciting, grist for the mill kind of, backstory for Tugger and Mistopheles. The only thing I was ever told was that, Mistopheles is this magical, super magical cat. And he's coming tonight, he's coming to pick her, be part of picking, the one who's going to go to the Heaviside Lair. And Tugger's always been the one to introduce him, that's all.
It's so fascinating because that's all you're given when you did this and in the beginning of the show. And then, now 40 years later, there is thousands of fan fiction, a lot of pictures, a lot of stuff about the two of them together that people have made up their own stories that, everything besides the one night of the ball that you all perform, it's like, here's everything we think about, which is because there's a lot of questions too about the relationship with Tugger and Bombalurina, and is Grisabella Tugger's mother? Is Old Deuteronomy the father? Like, there's a lot of unanswered questions. So I love hearing like how much comes into it in the beginning versus how much is fan theory came up at the end.
Well, I love that fans who, and I'm assuming most of these people have seen the show, whether they saw the revival, whether they saw the original show, or whether they saw a national production of it. I love that they got that kind of a depth of relationship and fantasy from it. If that's what they got from it, that's fantastic, because it just fleshes out, and makes much more richer your experience with those characters.
Completely. I mean, and I think that there's a lot of the lore lives on because there's, the 1998 movie was a lot of people my age and currently on tour and currently on Broadway. It was a lot of their introduction to theater was around that time. And so that's like a very, key part of their learning was that VHS tape. Like it's that moment. Then there was the 2016 revival. And then, obviously the 2019 movie is a very different take on it.
Ooh, yeah.
Different podcast. We're not getting there. But that's where there is just so many productions. It's touring. It's on a Royal Caribbean cruise. It's overseas in Vienna. There's so many versions that there's a lot of options and places to see it, that there is a lot of people and it's a vague plot. So people do fill in the blanks with what they see and what they feel, which is, I think why it's still, is still so successful all these years later. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's fantastical. And, I just always remember when I saw the show, I walked into it and I was transported theatrically, to a place I'd never been before either as an actor or as an audience member. I just went, wow, there is so much, life here that is at cat level, and there's so many nuances of what they do and why they do it and how they do it and why they're here and you get cats really do run the world. They're the ones that really they influence everybody's choices. You know, that's what you were getting. They are the universal reason we exist as a, on Earth. It was phenomenal like that. You know, and so, you know, little kids coming back in the 80s or the 90s, whatever, you know, sitting there, it allowed your imagination to run wild with what they didn't tell you. You know, like you said, you could just fill in the blank, but what you did get was left a huge imprint.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those shows that, you know, I think about spin-offs in TV, that you could spin off so many of these characters into these wild stories that would have enough, you know, to go off of. And it's kind of a unique piece of that, because you only get, in some cases, a song, or in some cases not even a song. And you just have to kind of see where they're staged and what their reactions are. So it's why it's so successful so many years later, is there's so much there, and there's usually something for everybody.
True.
We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died.
I do want to talk a little bit about Only Gold, because I am excited. It's coming to New York, so I hope everyone who is in New York is going to be able to see it. But there's a lot of Cats ties to it with Andy Blankenbuehler. I also know that I saw Tyler Haynes is in it. He was in 2016.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about this show. I know it's new and it hasn't, you know, as we're recording this, it hasn't started yet. So I was able to read a little bit about it, but it sounds kind of fascinating. What can the audience expect when they come see it?
Well, it's been Andy's brainchild for about 10 years. And the story that I got from him was it's loosely based on this, in the 1920s, this king of this country went to Paris to arrange his daughter's wedding, and to find with the count and the monarch of another country, so that's what you did back in those days. You know, your daughter married the son of this country, so you always had a good political relationship between the countries, and it was, you know, and you fall in love later afterwards. So that was kind of the thrust of it. But the story, the emotional story, is about sort of the three phases of love, which is young love, and the daughter actually, you know, falls in love with somebody else in Paris. That middle-aged love where you've been together and you're questioning things now. Are we supposed to be together? Should we stay together? And some of those choices and decisions are made, you know, are painful, and some of them, you know, you get to the other side of it. And then it's with older love, when you've been together those 30, 40 years, which is the king and the queen. And it really examines those three aspects of life and love. And it couched in this king and queen and daughter coming to Paris to arrange the wedding for the daughter, and all of the things that happen, going to find the jewels and that she'll wear in the wedding. But along the way, what's really happened is that the king and the queen have become so disparate to one another. So, you know, they've just grown apart. So it's really sort of such a, you know, it's just formal now. It's not even, they're not who they were when they were young, but they're still there because they're hanging in on, you know, ruling the country. But so he wants to make her happy, try to rekindle that. And so I'm not going to try to tell you the whole thing, because there's some really exciting stuff that you find. But anyway, they find their way back to what it was that made them fall in love. And so it's a big love story. And it's done with this music, this phenomenal music by Kate Nash. And then Andy Blankenbuehler's unbelievable choreography and, you know, storytelling through dance that he's, you know, nobody's like him. It's just incredible. So we're in the middle of getting it done, and I think we start previews maybe in October, beginning of October, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, no, it's beginning of October. I'll link all this stuff into because I'm really excited to come see it here. Anybody in New York should definitely come see it. It's such a unique combination because it's combining a really incredible lyricist and musician in Kate Nash, and then one of the top choreographies in Andy Blankenbuehler together with this like new creative show. So it's an exciting thing to see, and an incredible cast that you have with you to tell this story. Yeah.
I don't really know. Yeah. That's it.
So here's the one thing I usually do, but I haven't, because you haven't even started previews yet. I always love to try to compare the current cast of the Only Gold to Kat's characters. But so I'm going to need your help to do this. So that way, when people come see the show, they're able to say, okay, the king is most like, I'm making this up, Old Deuteronomy. So if you could name a couple of the characters from Only Gold, and then who would be your closest Kat in terms of like personality?
Well, I think, the king is kind of like, not really, but probably the king is like Old Deuteronomy, but he's not that sort of, he's not that omnipotent. He's a little more proactive, more human. Yeah, a little more human. The queen might well be Grisabella, for sure.
Okay.
I think the daughter is more like, Bomb, a combination of Bomb, Ballerina, and Demeter. And then Tyler plays about 4 or 5 different characters throughout the show. And that's definitely a Tugger.
Yeah.
I mean, he definitely is ripping on that. It's good.
I love it. It's exciting. I had a blast talking with him, a while back. And so I'm excited to see you and him and perform as, taking the Tugger, do more Andy, for him, it's more Andy, like your choreography, such a cool chance. So let's go into some rapid fire, just a couple, rapid fire Cats questions. So
sure.
If you could play any other cat besides Tugger, which cat would you want to go on for one day as?
For one day as Gus.
Is that the career? I've had this debate a couple times with people off podcasts, and I've never been recorded. But if you follow a career arc, you could really do that within Cats. So you could go from for Tugger to a Buster Jones to a Gus, or then to an Old Deuteronomy. Like throughout your career, you could do that.
Sure.
So is that where that Gus answer comes from?
No, it just comes from, I love that old Shakespearean cat. And I love the song that he sings. Gus is a cat of the theater. I love that character. I just love that character.
Mm-hmm.
Gus.
I love it.
And then yeah.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just going to say that I love that he turns into Growl Tiger.
Yeah, that's it's not in every production, so it's kind of, it depends on which one you see. Does the Growl Tiger actually stay?
I know.
But, so who would you say are your favorite and least favorite cats? So by character, not by actor or anything, but just like which personalities did you like and dislike?
I would say I liked Bob Ballerina.
Okay.
I just didn't know. I thought, and who did I dislike? Well, McCavity.
I stay true Tugger. You gotta like Bomb and dislike McCavity. I love
That's right. Yeah.
What is your favorite song from the show?
Memory.
Just,
yeah, no question. Every night, whether it was Betty, and I was only there for Betty and God rest her soul, Laurie Beachman. Every night, it was just unbelievable, transportive, amazing.
Yeah.
Every night.
And I love it. So here's my final question, which is what the thesis of the show is, which is, I've argued that I don't think Grisabella should be the right Jellicle choice. So I'd love to hear, do you agree with that? If so, who would you want to defend? And if not, why do you defend Grisabella as the right Jellicle choice?
As the right Jellicle choice to go to the Heaviside layer?
Yep. So in the Jellicle Ball, just this one year, why is she the actual decision?
Well, I don't know. I have to support Grisabella because for no reason, it seems, everybody hates her. What did she do to them? What did she... That's some of the backstories the fans have made up over the years of what she's actually gone and done. Yeah, and now she's down. Maybe she was when she was in her prime. Maybe she just was really snooty and looked down on everybody, and didn't. But it's about when somebody's. Now she's all mangy and she lives in a corner over there. She doesn't get any food. And I just think she was the right choice.
I still firmly believe that because I think the whole thing is acceptance and redemption, right? That's the theme of the show.
Yep.
I think she should go next year. I think she should get a year with her family. I think she should come back, have a full year with the family. Send Gus this year, or Samuel Shanks, or somebody else who's earned their time, and then she can go next year.
But maybe she doesn't have any family.
But isn't the Jellicle host her family? Isn't that the whole point? She left. She kind of got shunned. She kind of got exiled from the community, and now she's coming back. So is that not her family?
Well, I guess I always thought that these cats all came together as a collective just for that one night. But the rest of the year, they were off in other parts of England or London with their own little core. Never, they never stayed together. It wasn't like they were a gang.
Interesting. All right. Here's a new, all right. That's a new take. Cause I love anytime I hear some kind of different variation of this, cause that's what makes the show so great is there isn't a one answer. So you're saying that they're basically their own independent cats. They come together just this one time, this one night. It's not an annual thing. They don't come together next year.
Well, they come together every year, but they are, cats are independent. I think every one of them goes in during the year. They go and live. Maybe one goes and lives in Scotland. Maybe one goes and lives, down in Cornwall. They don't. That's my take on it. That they only come together to this one cat thing.
Okay, so they're not family. They're independent, and they come together for their sacrifice once a year.
Correct.
And then they go back their different ways, and then they come back again. So that definitely changes that question then, because that would ruin my argument that she needs to come back with her family. Because if she's coming back, then she would need to go, because otherwise she's just going to go back to nowhere. There's going to be nobody leaving with her. That's right.
That's my take on it for sure.
Okay, I can buy that. I don't think I'm ready to change the name of the podcast and defend her every time, but I do think that I'm going to be thinking about this a lot more than I would like to admit when we finish recording.
Right. Well, I'm just
now what all the versions of this look like.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if there's any dialogue or any part of the poetry that indicates that they all live together.
I don't think there is. There's a couple that it's clear that they're together. Like Mungo Jerry and Rumple Teaser are clearly they'll go off together. Skimbleshanks goes his own way on the trail.
That's right.
So there's that. I just always assume there's McCavity's gang and Baum and Demeter are kind of in that. So you're right. I don't think it's very clearly stated. There are definitely a couple, but it doesn't make it seem like they are living together the entire time. You've got a point there. I'm not sure. Again, I'm going to think about this for a lot more than I want to, as I now try to figure out how I can make my argument against Grisabella now under this circumstance.
Right. Well, and you got to remember, it's a special occasion for them to come together. They all had to anyway. Jenny Anydots had to come from a long way away. I mean, it's yeah.
No, it's again, this is what makes the show so unique. Is I've heard, we're 80 plus, and I've talked to probably 50 to 75 cast members. and everyone's giving me a slightly different version. And that's what makes it so fun. Cause I know you're all learning, like everyone's being told a slightly different version, even in the rehearsals compared to, there's obviously some very key core concepts, but you have to play it a little different every day. And you have to think about some of those things to make the moments that happen on stage happen.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. A lot of filling in the blank, a lot of backstory in your own mind about this. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I will share the information on Only Gold in this the description for everybody in the podcast. But how else can people stay in touch with you of what you're doing, coming up, and anything else you're working on?
Well, I don't. I'm not a big Instagram or Twitter or Facebook person, but I just finished doing a TV series for Apple TV Plus called Foundation, which the first season came out a year ago. We just finished shooting the second season. That's going to be a while before it comes out, but for those of you that may have seen it before, first season, the second season is just unbelievable. It's off the hook amazing. So it'll be out a few months from now, I think.
Amazing. So it's on Apple TV, and then anybody in New York can come see it at the MCC Theater. I think they are starting in early October.
Correct.
For the show.
Right. Exactly.
Well, this has been amazing. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing some fun stories and crazy stories, and of course giving me a different version to think about of Cats Now, which is always good for my own health of trying to now rethink through this story in a different lens.
glad to open up the windows on another look at the Cats.
Yeah, another angle for me to watch.
Another angle.
1998 movie again. Now watching it from this way.
Yeah,
I love it. So thank you for being here, and thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breaking down the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.